two issues. One is what price do you put on fairness is the first thing. But secondly, I don't agree because I think an attachment order can attach, they set the ceiling at €500. The law can be changed. That's what we are as legislators and parliamentarians. We can bring in a law in the morning applying an attachment order for bills over €150 and it can be deducted from people's salaries and there's no cost in that.
But you have to bring proceedings or investigate who hasn't paid.
Which would be
and verify that.
Irish Water has a list of those who haven't paid and those who have paid. And Irish Water are billing, the billings have been paused, not stopped. Those bills can be reissued again tomorrow with the outstanding balance.
Okay, so would Fine Gael go down that road of implementing an attachment order?
But that would be my personal view, that I mean, in the interest of fairness, the law of the land applies or it doesn't, one or the other, but you can't have it both ways, that the law does apply or doesn't apply. The law has to apply, and if the law of the land applies, well then that's what you do, you apply it in the most common sense way.
We're in a group water scheme, and I can tell you one thing, that if 50% of the people didn't pay and the other 50% paid, there'd be a lot of people knocking on your door very quickly that would have paid if they thought that the rest.
But two wrongs won't make a right.
Yeah, Michael. Fair enough, Jim, but we have to live in the real world as well.
Yeah. And so it's doable then. An attachment order, Brid Smith. If you haven't paid, you could wake up tomorrow morning or whenever and say, okay, this is going to come out of my account one way or the other.
Interesting, just to let the public know, because it kind of went under the radar. Last week, Dublin City Council had to forgo 40,000 accounts owing on bin charges because of the campaign we had years ago not to pay the bin charges, and they just dropped them because they weren't retrievable, and they were spending more money on trying to get them back through employing, these loan agencies that come after your debt.
But Jim Daly has explained how it could be done simply this time.
And putting in an attachment order. Well, I disagree with Jim. Obviously, I'm for paying the people back who paid the water charges. It should never have been paid in the first place. So I am for paying them back. But I don't think that's the priority. The priority is to sort out this mess we're in. And it's certainly causing a huge dilemma for the establishment parties, and they need to get their house in order and decide what they're going to do.
Cormac, one point there I'd like to bring in as well is there's a forgotten people out there of 500,000 different homes around the country with the group water schemes who have been sort of the battering ram in the middle of all this. The money was taken away in subvention, a bit came back. They didn't know where they've stood for the last few years. And those people, realistically now, will be paying a double tax. And government has to look at this as well for the group water scheme.
I think the report recommends that they don't pay either.
What do you think? That's thrown right back in your face, Jim.
No, I mean, I accept it. There isn't a price that you can put on fairness. But I mean, I don't accept 65% of the people have paid, or were paying at the time when they were scrapped. It's 35%. I think 61 or 65%, but it's in the 60% anyway of people who were paying.
I don't think your figures are accurate.
Well,
65%.
They're not my figures. They're Irish Water's.
65%.
Anyway, look, we can argue over the tops and the turbies
and
of it.
I think Irish Water, including that, the group water scheme. Yeah, so your figures are way off.
Okay, the vast
majority of people have refused to pay.
Okay, the principle of, but I mean, what is it tomorrow? They say car tax will be your next political, what'll be your next one that you want to launch?
I don't think you should be facetious about this. This is a very, this has gone to the heart.
It's a very matter-of-fact question.
No,
will
it's not.
Tax
it has gone to the heart of what austerity has represented for the Irish people.
No, it's disobedience. It's civil disobedience.
Civil disobedience against another austerity measure.
The law of the land.
Against another austerity measure. This measure,
the law of the land, is adopted by the Parliament of the country in a democracy.
This measure was issued as part of the Troika's demands on the Irish state. You have got to take a water charge, just like you have got to take a property tax, just like you have got to take pay cuts, and you've got to put the
did you pay your property tax? Did you pay your property tax?
I had no choice because it
what's the difference? What's the difference?
The property, I didn't pay anything until they took it from my wages.
Okay,
the difference is I don't volunteered in any money.
But why didn't you protest against the property tax, which is a much more unfair tax?
We were outside your conference, all 40,000 of us protesting against it in the convention centre when you had Angela Merkel over.
Yeah, but no, you took off on water charges. The property tax was left by and large go through, and it's a much more unfair tax. You don't get anything in return for it.
There was major resistance to the property tax.
You don't get anything in return for it.
In fact, the groups we established throughout the country, the nucleus of them was the initial fight against the household tax.
But is this question not fair? What do you target next? And if so, what happens with the local property tax, for example? Are you going to target that next?
We can't. It's been taken out of. We had opposed it. We had marched against it. We had a campaign not to pay the household charges until they put it in with revenue. You remember your history. Revenue didn't have control over the property tax until a later initiative was taken by the state.
So if revenue had water, would you pay the water charge?
We'd have to. They'd take it off.
So maybe that's what we should do. It should be a tax,
but exactly,
not a
that's what Fianna Fáil have already hinted at. That's what Fianna Fáil have already hinted at. But you see, that even that hint will bring the tens of thousands out onto the streets again in the new year, because we're not going to be hoodwinked hoodwinked again into paying more and more on austerity while you have a grossly unfair taxation system in this country. Ask me where we get it from and I'll talk to you till the cows come home. Starting with a financial transaction tax on the trillions that go through the IFSC every day.
I know, sure. I saw your pre-budget submission and there's 40 billion out there. There's 40 billion out there for us.
Simon Coveney says he's unequivocal about this. I would like to remind everybody that so was Phil Hogan unequivocal about the fact that water charges were here to stay, and their minds were changed by the mass movement that came to the streets and by the mass boycott that took place. You can change unequivocal minds by both the elections and by demonstration and by boycott, and that is what happened.
If you pay people back, the simple reality is that the government has less money to do whatever with.
Well,
and if you do not charge excessive use,
I am
the government has less
constantly
money
trying
again.
to open this debate, but nobody around this table or in the Dáil or in the wider society wants to discuss the question of the fiscal space. What is our fiscal space? We look at a tiny little cake of taxation that comes from VAT, from incomes. We don't look beyond that. And there is so much more to be got. Only this week we learned that Cerebus paid €1,900 on a profit of 77 million. Now, how wrong is that? Had they paid 12.5% corporation tax, that would have been 9.6 million.
Are you saying that if we get rid of water charges altogether, for example, and that we have to fund the water service through general taxation, that we don't have to increase tax at all? Is that what you're saying?
We have always argued that we fund the water service through progressive taxation measures. And progressive taxation measures means that everybody pays a fair share, and that includes the very wealthy, the giant corporations and the vulture funds like Cerebus who've just got away with murder.
Okay, so
€1,900 out of a profit of 77 million.
So everybody pays a fair share of tax. Everybody pays
not on the back of the working man.
That's what you want. You want everything on the back of the working man and let those who don't want to pay for nothing and continue in that
one voice.
I have said quite the opposite. Don't take
in fairness to her, Jim Daly, she didn't mention the working man there. She mentioned corporations.
I mentioned corporations and I mentioned vulture funds and I mentioned wealth.
Every time you mention general taxation, what you mean is for the working person.
I said progressive taxation.
That is where general taxation is a term that's used all the time, and general taxation means the working person pays.
Amir, I was slagging you on the way in about other things, but you want to clean your ears. That is not what I said.
Okay, and people are wondering what you were slagging me about now. But
well, I'm not going to tell you.
Let's go back to the birth of
personal hygiene. Anyway.
Yeah, let's go back to the birth of water charges. I mean, where did this come about? First, it came through the MOU that when the Troika came into town to broaden the tax base to make it fair that the country was too reliant on the PAYE tax.
They didn't necessarily to do it in this way.
Yeah, but that's why water charges were put about in the very first instance.
But it never dawned on the government to broaden the tax base by going after the IFSC, the 12 trillion that goes to the IFSC.
We can shut down the IFSC if we start raising taxes on it. We can kill off the jobs we have there.
This is getting too much.
Can I address the Fine Gael issue as well? Can I address the Fine Gael issue instead of 34 separate local authorities doing so? Can I just finish my point? No, just let me finish the point for fear that anybody around the table, including yourself, might learn from it, and if they don't, fair enough as well, right? But 1.3 billion was the cost of providing water by 34 separate local authorities in this country. Irish Water cost 800 million per annum to provide the same amount of water. No, let me finish, Brid. I didn't interrupt you, so just let me finish, please, okay? 800 for that, but the 500 million that we're saving. Can I hit one more? Can I just hit one more?
Can we stall the ball? I think the next question has to go to Brid Smith, because you campaigned to get rid of water charges. You're now saying there will be further protests to get rid of the whole framework being proposed. So I think it's incumbent upon you to find a solution to how Irish water and the service will be provided. How will it be paid?
Okay, I will repeat and very clearly repeat that there is a fiscal space to be got out there through taxing profits, through taxing financial transactions in the IFSC at a very minimal rate that will not cost us jobs. This financial transaction tax of 0.01% on trillions of euro that come through the IFSC is being implemented in other European countries, and the money hasn't legged it from France or Italy or Germany on the basis of a financial transaction tax. It's a simple measure. The European Union has recommended it would yield at least 500 million a year. That would pay for your water. And that's what we mean by progressive taxation, not going after working class people or workers or small and medium businessmen again.
They'd leg it out of the IFSC, is that right?
Well, I think this. there's a risk. We're going to reduce the attractiveness of the IFSC. That's point one. Point two, the jobs there have come in relatively recently. We're not a wealthy country going back generations like France or Italy. So the risk that jobs there would be jeopardised is a lot higher. And coming to a point Jim Daly made where I'd like to agree with him about taxation of the common man, if you look at the headings of tax the government receives, since 2007, VAT is back up to where it was in 2007, corporation tax is just ahead of where it was in 2007, excise is where it was in 2007, tax receipts from income tax and from universal social charge, they're 40% ahead of where they were in 2007. So the bulk of the taxation adjustment borne by austerity has been borne by income tax and USC, and borne by the common man and the common woman.
Yeah. So
I agree with that.
But all the more reason
like
for a financial transaction tax, surely.
I'd like to challenge your notion that we would lose jobs for imposing, and listen to the figures,
I've heard your figures.
1%.
I would like to challenge your notion that you can impose a tax and have no impact. If it was so easy...
You would have an impact. You deal 500 million.
If it was so easy to have an impact-free tax...
It's not impact-free. You'd get 500 million.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
Negative impact. You're suggesting that the people who are going to be expected to pay this will have no impact whatsoever. I'm saying there will be a cost, there will be an impact.
Prove it, Cormac. Prove it. Where is your evidence
I don't have
for
to
this?
prove a damn thing to you, Brid Smith. It is absurd to propose you can take money from people's pockets and they won't have a reaction to that. That is an absurdity.
Well, that's exactly what happened with the water charges. It was absurd to suggest that you could take more money from ordinary people's pocket and not expect a reaction. And you got your reaction. And the reaction was hundreds of thousands of people on the street and a mass boycott of the charges.
Who wanted to pay for nothing.
There's no surprise in that. Majority of TDs who promised they would abolish it.
There's no surprise that there's 100,000 people who don't want to pay for anything. There's no surprise in that, Brid. And I'm sure you'll get them out again tomorrow on the same vein.
Why?
Who don't want to pay for anything. Because there are people out there who don't want to pay for anything.
No, that is not paying for anything.
They don't want to pay for anything. And that's their mentality. And that's what they want to do.
The bulk of income tax comes from ordinary people.
All the people who protested against water taxes, that they're people who don't want to pay for anything?
I said there's 100,000 people at least in the country who don't want to pay for anything. And we're quite happy to go out and march to that.
That's a disgraceful insult.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm entitled. Can I just make absolutely clear, because the record will show what I said, right? That I believe there are 100,000 people who don't want to pay.
Where are you getting your figures, Jim? It'd be interesting to find out.
Just let me make the point, okay? There's a danger of just letting me finish this sentence here, right? That I believe there are 100,000 people out there who don't want to pay. Will not pay, but don't want to pay. There's a difference, right? Won't and don't want to pay. And the other thing, I certainly did not say that everybody who marched didn't want to pay for anything. I know full well, I'm a practicing politician, met with all of these people, that people marched for a whole variety of reasons. They were against the establishment of Irish Water. They were against the referendum issue and all of that. So not for a second am I saying that everybody who marched.
And where has this belief come from?
Where does my belief come from? But that's just a practice. That's my own belief. I mean, where does any belief come from? From living in 40?
I believe in God. I believe 100,000 people.
You're a serious politician, right, with serious experience, and you've gone through this controversial story since 2013 or so. So where does this belief that there's 100,000 people, Irish people in the country, that do not want to pay for anything?
Why don't you believe it might be a higher figure? I mean, I'm surprised at your disbelief, Cormac.
I just want to.
Well, I mean, 100,000 is a round figure, right? There's no science to it whatsoever.
You're used to dealing with statistics.
It's human nature. People don't want to pay more for anything.
Is this just a symbolic figure? Is it based on research?
Sure. I mean, I didn't go out and count people or anything, but
could it be higher, as Cormac Lucy said?
Can you let me answer it? Brid mentioned the figure 100,000 people.
I said hundreds of thousands.
Okay, well, hundreds of thousands, and I took up 100,000.
So could it be hundreds of thousands?
And I said it is no surprise that 100,000 would come onto the street again to refuse to pay for something.
But there were hundreds of thousands
that don't want to pay for something.
No, sorry. It's not no surprise. You said, I believe that there's at least 100,000 people in the country who do not want to pay for anything.
Yeah. So, I mean, it goes back to the point about a car tax. If that's Brid's next campaign, I've no doubt she'd find 100,000 willing souls to go out and march again, not to pay for it if there was a campaign started there, because there are 100,000 people out there who don't want to pay for things.
Jim, I have repeatedly stated what we want to see, and that is progressive taxation. Like the one, I'll repeat again, a 0.01% tax on the IFSC trade.
There's another issue, by the way, that's not being discussed.
Not to pay my driving licence.
There's another issue not being discussed in this whole debate.
Pay for itself in 4 to 5 years.
I have to correct you, Michael. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but you're talking about rural Ireland. In the city, the main leaks can be detected by district metering. and that doesn't require
Brid,
a meter on every home. Let me finish.
But just get this clear.
No,
a half inch pipe. We've the stats on where the leaks were.
Yeah.
They were in at the back of a ballcock, or else they were in round the house.
Okay.
The reality of it is, Brid, that 1/2 inch pipe leaks 3,000 gallons of water per day.
I'm saying it's different in the city. I'm saying it's different in the city because the infrastructure in the city will detect the major leaks which are in the district rather than in the individual houses. There's no doubt that there are leaks in the individual houses, and one of the crucial things about individual houses is the replacement of lead pipes. But the big leaks happen by district level. I know guys in the waterworks who go around with the plug on their ear. Yeah. Some of my best friends, my first job was in Dublin City Council. These guys are 40 years in the job. They know where the big leaks are. They know where the problems are.
And it is not about
individual houses.
Brendan,
it is more about
question in the Dáil today. The fact is, Brid Smith, that if the money isn't there, and we have a finite amount of money in 2017, you might have to cut somewhere. So where could be cut?
Well, first of all, at the head of the programme, I think it was you said in relation to the Fine Gael cabinet row that Michael Noonan announced that there's 280 million ahead of target for November in terms of revenue. So on the one hand, it's hard to understand what's going on here unless there's, fake economics that one body is saying we're in trouble and the other, Michael Noonan, is saying we're 280 million ahead of target.
We also have a housing crisis.
Of course we do. And I'll go back to the question of redistribution of wealth. It has to be fundamental to what we do in this society. The top 10% in this society own 53% of the wealth, and the bottom 50% own 4.5% of the wealth. There's gross inequality in Ireland, and that inequality is rampant in the public sector. Teachers are being paid unequal pay rates for the same job. No, it's not. It's not the same in all major economies. The share of the share of money that goes to public services across Europe is about 40% of the total income. In Ireland, it's about 30%. So we're way behind the EU average of the top 28 countries.
If we didn't have that. So people need to kind of take stock of where we are. The second thing is, and this comes from, I suppose, the union mentality really, that this whole thing of tying public sector wages to the economy. And when the economy is going up, they all want more. And when the economy is going down, they're all being cut.
Your wages are tied to it. You've got a big rise for January.
Hear me out. That, we need to move away from that cyclical cycle of, going with the economy going up, all the increases, and then the economy going down, cut. Because today's or tomorrow's increase will be a cut in a few months' time or whatever.
In the last budget.
How do you mean?
You put money aside, and you also increased budgets right across the board. €5 here and €5 there, which really made little impact for anyone.
Yeah, and two wrongs don't make a right. Some of that isn't justified either. Whatever.
I remind the TDs sitting around the table, they voted against a motion that said that we would forgo the $5,000 increase next January. You didn't, fair play to you, but the majority of TDs did. And now they can come along and say, the public sector workers we can't afford to pay them equality, blah, blah, blah. I just don't accept the rhetoric.